Nintendo console launches are always hype, even if there's not much to be hyped about. When the biggest name in gaming drops their latest hardware, it sparks joy in millions of people. The promise of new, innovative experiences is a large part of that, but what's there on day one can have a pretty big impact too. Some launch lineups are stacked with heavy hitters you can't live without, while others only have a couple games that you've played versions of before. That's why today, we're looking at every Nintendo console's launch lineup and ranking them from worthless to elite. And yeah, we're talking specifically about the North American consoles, so don't you dare say I forgot the Famicom.
The Nintendo Entertainment System, where video technology is more than a game.
The original NES hit the ground running, with high-quality titles you couldn't find anywhere else. The iconic Black Box series gave console adopters a huge variety of experiences right from the get-go, and most of them live on as absolute classics. You got Excitebike, Duck Hunt, Ice Climber, Kung Fu, Mach Rider, Hogan's Alley, Wrecking Crew, and most famously, Super Mario Bros., which was more often than not packed in with the console, and was many people's first taste of what Nintendo was all about, and damn was it a good one. It's one of the greatest and most revolutionary video games of all time, and it absolutely needed to be. With the video game crash just a few years prior, they needed to set a standard for not only themselves, but the gaming industry as a whole, and this launch lineup did exactly that and then some, warranting an unquestionable elite.
Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power. Portable power.
The Game Boy launched with a lot less games than the NES did, having only 6, and even still, it feels like there's more filler. Baseball and tennis are crappy versions of their sports, Yakuman is Mahjong, and Alleyway is a breakout clone, but Tetris and Super Mario Land carry. Tetris was packed in with just about every console, and like Mario Bros, is one of the most timeless and famous games in history. This thing is endlessly replayable and plays into the Game Boy's portability factor perfectly. And then Super Mario Land shows that yep, you can play a somewhat traditional platformer on this god-awful tiny screen, and it can still be pretty fun. So yeah, those two alone effectively demonstrate the Game Boy's value and potential, making the lineup as a whole small but effective.
It's 16-bit, and it's yours only if you get new Super Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
The Super Nintendo had even less games to start, with only 5, but all of these are honestly quite good. F-Zero is a futuristic, fast-paced racing game, Gradius 3 is an arcade space shooter, SimCity simulates you building a city, Pilot Wings lets you pilot things with wings, and Super Mario World highlights the lineup as the next big Mario platformer, and it's arguably the best 2D Mario to date. It's a nice variety of stuff to play, but outside of die-hard Mario fans, there's not much here to persuade original NES owners to make the upgrade. They already had 3 Marios on the console, and the other games weren't exactly must-plays, so I'd put it on the same level as the Game Boy.
Virtual Boy, see it now in 3D.
Continuing the trend of having one less game at launch, the Virtual Boy hit the scene with just 4, and that would end up being almost 20% of the console's final library, so proportionally,
it's massive.
All 4 of these games met mixed to terrible review scores, like every other Virtual Boy game, so it's hard to give it much credit at all. Worthless.
Change the system.
The Nintendo 64 has the smallest launch lineup of all time, featuring just 2 games, but one of them is another industry-disrupting, genre-defining, revolutionary experience, and the other is Super Mario 64. No, Pilot Wings 64 is fine, but the console was made to play Mario 64. It opened the door to 3D video games and was the most expansive world of its time. Even if you only had this game, it provided you a sandbox to screw around in indefinitely, and it's the greatest showcase for what the system can do and the direction games were going moving forward. Another very small but hyper-effective lineup.
New Game Boy Color. Escape to color.
The Game Boy Color didn't really try at launch. Being able to play all original Game Boy games already gave it a massive selection of games, but the exclusives to warrant the upgrade just weren't there. Centipede, Game & Watch Gallery 2, and Pocket Bomberman were all playable on the original, and Tetris DX, the one exclusive, worked on regular Game Boy consoles for some reason, albeit with lesser graphics. This is on par with the Virtual Boy. Worthless. The Game Boy Advance had a lot more games right away than most of these other systems, but that doesn't make it better. It gives you a good amount of stuff to play, yes, but very little of it's actually new. The big Mario game this time around is a port of Mario 2, the worst one, so Rayman Advance is your brand new platformer, and outside of those, what, you get an F-Zero game? Cool. Namco Museum might be the best game here, and it's a compilation of 5 old arcade games, but being able to take the bundle on the go in one cartridge is nice. Still, it lacks pretty much anything new, and could have used a fresh experience or two. Need some help. The Nintendo GameCube had 12 games at launch, and while it's one of the only consoles to not get a traditional Mario game right away, I think it more than makes up for it. The replacement, Luigi's Mansion, is a really unique angle for the Mario series, focusing on the underrated Lil Bro, and giving off a completely different vibe for the series. And instead of another F-Zero at launch, or even Mario Kart, we got Wave Race, another super refreshing take on a popular genre. Then we got baseball, football, and hockey games, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, a BMX game, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, Crazy Taxi, Super Monkey Ball. This lineup was star-studded, and has some of the system's all-time greats in one go. Maybe I'm biased with how much I love the GameCube, but the sheer variety of amazing experiences can't be ignored. It's right up there with the best of the best.
Elite!
The DS had 7 games at launch, and it showed a hell of a lot of promise, but like the GBA before it, failed to offer much new stuff. Mario 64 DS was your quote new Mario game, and it showed the console to be a portable equivalent to the N64. It rebuilt the game from the ground up, added some new content, and worked really well, even without the analog stick. This was pretty great to have at launch, but didn't do much with the console's main gimmick, the second touchscreen. Thankfully though, Metroid Prime Hunters did just that. Kinda. It showcased a super innovative new way to control a first-person shooter, and showed Metroid Prime, the game of the year from 2 years prior, running on a handheld. But it wasn't the full experience yet, just the first hunt was available at launch, and players had to wait another year and a half for the full game. If that were a full-on launch title, it could really drag up this lineup, but a remake, a demo, and a bunch of garbage leaves this selection on life support. Please, give it some help.
We would like to play.
The Nintendo Wii had 23 games at launch, which is by far the most yet, but a solid half of them were crappy licensed games. The other half though, pretty freaking quality. Rampage, Excite Truck, even Call of Duty 3, Raving Rabbids, I've heard some good things about Red Steel, so some really good stuff that covers basically all grounds. And the big Nintendo titles this time around were Twilight Princess and Wii Sports. Twilight Princess also released on the GameCube, so it's not fully a system seller, but the GameCube only sold like 20 million units, so the game certainly convinced a lot of people to jump back on the Nintendo wagon and buy a Wii. The biggest selling point though was Wii Sports, because not only was it the perfect tech demo for the console, but it was also packed in with every single Wii system. This game breaks the age barrier and is fun whether you're 4 or 84, and simplifies the motion control technology into easy to understand and wildly addictive gameplay. The selection of sports is amazing, and the game holds up well even today. Honestly, without the game, this selection would be pretty so-so, but with it, it's going up in Elite. The 3DS was really underwhelming at launch. Sure, it had 16 games, but not one of them justified the upgrade from a regular DS. The closest thing to doing that was Rayman 3D, being a remake of Rayman 2 with updated visuals and mid-usage of the 3D. But beyond that, Nintendogs plus Cats, Lego Star Wars, Steel Diver, Asphalt 3D, sure you had some options, but nothing to warrant purchasing this overpriced Nintendo handheld. No Mario, Zelda, or Pokemon, instead, Pilot Wings, just like the N64. Yeah, I don't care. It's a couple gems away from being well-rounded, and it's left feeling pretty empty. Please help.
Hot buttered popcorn, that's a The games we love to play are on Wii U this holiday.
Nope.
The Wii U had the most games at launch of any Nintendo console, with a whopping 29. I guess that goes to show it doesn't matter how you start, and quality beats out quantity every time. Is there anything actually good here? The closest thing is Nintendo Land. I actually like this one a lot. I feel like it showcases what the Wii U can do and how the gamepad can be implemented really well. It's got super fun multiplayer, and features a ton of nods to all their iconic franchises. Outside of that though, your Mario game here is New Super Mario Bros. U. Yeah, the same recycled, bland, give us your money. No, this is the plumber's first HD game. What the f***? Most everything is an old game being watered down and ported, or a new game being watered down and ported. Or Zombie U. Zombie U is actually pretty cool. It feels just like the 3DS lineup, honestly. A few banger first-party titles would make this electric, but we got no such game, so it's another one that's in need of some help.
Nintendo Switch.
The Nintendo Switch goes back to having less filler and more quality stuff. Looking at you, Skylanders Imaginators. Super Bomberman R's good, 1-2 Switch is a solid tech demo that should have been packed in, f***ing dumb that it wasn't. And of course, the holy grail of launch titles, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now I know it released on the Wii U as well, but only 13 million people bought one of those, and this game outsold it by almost 3x. Crazy. This is the best-selling Zelda game by a mile, and is one of the greatest open-world games of all time. Obviously, it won Game of the Year back in 2017, but the fact that they got it working on a handheld console made it all the more of an enticing purchase. It's not quite elite, because I remember back at launch it felt like there was nothing but Zelda to play for a pretty long time, but the lineup was obviously still very effective. The Nintendo Switch 2 launch is kinda all over the place. It's got a ton of recent games that were too demanding for the base Switch finally making their way to a Nintendo platform and being playable on the go. Then we got updated versions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But none of that means shit. The reason you bought a Switch 2 at launch is for Mario Kart World, baby. It's a fully open world take on the Mario Kart formula, and it brings so many new ideas to a series that I didn't think needed to be shaken up, but benefited tremendously from it. A killer exclusive, check. Awesome third-party support, you betcha. A tech demo, we don't talk about that. This is still elite. And there you have it.